Of all the content I listed here, you could see I highlighted our learning outcome. So the emphasis of this chapter, I definitely want you to grasp about are the factors that contribute to sprawl and the problems associated with unplanned urban growth, land use planning principles, and the special urban planning issues. And I definitely want you to appreciate the concept of smart urban planning. And I want you to spend a few minutes, read this case study on our textbook, page 274. It only takes probably 2 minutes. And I want you to have this question in your mind when you're reading this article. Why the 1973 law was so successful for land planning till today. And the state of Oregon certainly served a very good example of long-term planning, unified planning. Till this day, 50 years later, the state still served as a model for other states to meet the goals of reduce costs and pollution and stopping urban sprawl. Let's take a look at this law passed 50 years ago. At first, there was a lot of argument and chaos on how to do the urban planning in the state of Oregon. So in 1973, Oregon took a pioneering step in land use planning. Basically, the goal of this bill is to let all the cities and the counties of the state to prepare a comprehensive plan in accordance with a set of general state goals. So in this case, the state took charge of the urban planning. So everybody has to apply with the same standard the state made. And we all know in a lot of states, we have a lot of counties and cities. Like in Texas, we have more than 200 counties and a lot of jurisdiction zones. So people all have their own goals and needs and standards. If we cannot get on the same page and we have different goals and standards, that will cause a problem and conflicts later. So I put the mini case study here to let you know if we all apply to the same standard, we can achieve a lot. So why we need to plan? Not thinking about urban planning, think about everything we do. For example, the goal for this semester for environmental science, right? We all have our goals, how much we need to achieve. So it is almost unnecessary to emphasize the need for planning. If we rush into anything, especially this is a serious thing and it takes a long time to accomplish, and probably in the middle or somewhere between, or even at the end of finishing all the things, we probably would regret and we want to come back and fix some steps. If we rush into doing without planning, we probably regret later, oh, I wish I had planned. I wish I could realize this earlier just to save time and energy. And this for city planning, it's the same thing. And probably people would complain now, like how bad the traffic is in Houston, right? Why people did not perceive this trend like 50 or 100 years ago? Well, it is difficult. And now we wish 50 years ago they had built wider roads. Of course, that could not be undone. So the other thing I want to mention is whatever you've done, you want to go back and correct your mistakes. That takes a lot of time and energy, and that is very expensive. So speaking enough, I'm just go ahead and go over this slide. The human development impacts all areas of lives on Earth and all features of the Earth. And most land decisions are still based primarily on economic considerations or short-term needs, rather than on unique analysis of the landscape. So we rush into feeding people, right? Building houses. And even before analysis of how unique the land is. Land is a renewable resource. Once we use it, it's very hard to change. And sometimes it's impossible to go back to change it. Now let's take a quick look how we use the land in the United States. A little bit more than half is used for crops and livestock. We need to feed people. And 44% is forest and natural areas. Only 4% is for intensive human use. That is an interesting number. And think about the questions I asked you before. How much water we can use from this planet? 0.2%. It's not as much as we thought. The same thing with the land. So in the early history, there's a pattern. If we look at this map here, let me see if I can zoom my screen. Oh no, I cannot. Okay. So this is in the textbook. Basically, my point is the early big cities are built on the waterways. If we look at the bottom of the second, the biggest picture here, if you find Gulf of Mexico, you can see Houston is not too far away from a big river called Brazos River. And San Antonio, Dallas. So those early cities were born on the waterways. You probably wonder why. I give you a second to think about it. Why early cities are built on waterways? So my slide here include all the answers. Because waterways were the primary method of transportation. And the major city is located on river, lakes, and oceans. It's easy to go somewhere. In addition to transportation, bodies of water provided drinking water, power, right, like water mill, and waste disposal for growing villages and towns. Of course, the waste disposal also caused contamination. And the waterfront became a center of intense industrial activity. So there was an early trend driven by industrial revolution. A lot of people moved from rural area to urban area. And the cities grow because of industrial revolution, European immigrants, they're looking for jobs, and cultural, social, and artistic opportunities. So industrial revolution around 1800s in North America drove the shift of the population.